everyone to another episode of Communicate with Impact. My lovely guest today is Harshitha Rajashekara. I hope that I pronounced your last name properly, Harshitha. Thank you very much. And Harshitha, may I ask you to introduce yourself to the guests?
Sure, Amit. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today to be your guest. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I am Harshitha Rajashekara. I'm basically an electrical and electronics engineer and also an MBA graduate in project and program delivery. And I'm also a graduate from technology-based entrepreneurship program from Govt of India. I started my career as a hardcore software developer, but I later worked as a tester, L2 support analyst, UX and UI designer, human-centered designer. But at the moment, I work as a project manager focusing on delivering infrastructure and digital projects, predominantly in the government sector.
Wow, that's interesting. And I also see you have I would really say, wealth of experience, from every aspect of a life cycle of a project in a way. Is that correct?
Perfect, yes.
Wonderful. You did mention, and I know this because I follow you on LinkedIn, that you are into government sector. I have never worked in a government sector, be it in any country. I want to know from you that what is the difference between working in government sector and in private sector, and the difference of the projects and things like that. And I'm sorry, one question on top of it is that what would you prefer as well?
Sure, that looks like quite a loaded question. I'll try to
answer. It is.
Yes.
Please.
Actually, when I moved to a government sector, I've come from a typical private sector, and then I started working in the government sector. I feel like in the government sector, you should have that mindset that you're making use of public servants' money, basically using taxpayers' money. So the level of integrity, the honesty, I would say, should be quite high. So no one is going to question that, why are we paying this tax? So people just paid the tax. So I feel like there's a lot more responsibility on you, especially you're leading a project or a program. That's the first mindset I feel like every public servant should have. The first aspect I would say is the volume, I would say, especially in a government sector, your customers are basically the citizens, whether you're working for a state government or a federal government. So your customers are there everywhere. Your neighbor is your customer. Your parents are your customer. Your family, your friends are basically your customers. When it comes to private sector, you might have certain people as your customers kind of thing. So the volume of people or the size, the capacity is quite big in private sector when compared, in public sector when compared to private sector. But also I would argue that it depends upon the type of project that you're managing in a private sector as well. It also might say that they're equally big sized kind of thing. But with my experience, I would say that government sectors are quite big programs when compared to private ones.
Wow. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just curious on the first point you mentioned, is that every person is your output, like the end user, right? And that's very, very thoughtful for me now because, of course, the taxpayers' money, that's one thing that's there. But when you just mentioned that every person eventually is your end user, that really puts you in a very different perspective, because now you're thinking of not just one or two product or service that we deliver as a private sector, but now you're thinking very generic and for the benefit of mankind and that sort of, right? So sorry to interrupt you, but please go on. Just wanted to share that.
No problem. Volume is quite high. And I would also say that in terms of reputation, is something that we need to be aware when we are working in government. When I say reputation, means that you're in a system where you're working for a particular minister. So they have funded your program or project that you're working on. And especially as a project manager, if you do some sort of a small mistake or small hiccups, can blow up out of proportion sometimes. So it's not about your mistakes can hurt someone's reputation very big because it's in a political setup as well. So you need to be very I would say conscious of your actions. When I say how I stay conscious is to make sure that I follow the policies, procedures, and regulations very thoroughly, and not to skip anything out of the procedures that is given to me. I would say that there's quite a big reputational risk in public sector. I feel like that is quite less in the private sector. So that the company might offer that might affect with their budgeting and might lose out some money, but it might not create that much impact on any particular person. Here, I feel like in the public sector, it might completely wash out a minister's reputation itself. That's something that we need to be conscious about.
Sorry, I didn't realize. You're absolutely right. It's true. I mean, there's a different sort of people who are on stake when it comes to private sector and public sector. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, please continue. I'm just very, I'm getting a lot of insights in a different way, that I didn't thought of. That's why I'm just pumping it.
I think what I do is, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I was heading up a QR code project for South Australia. So basically scanning one, so people will scan the QR code wherever the location that they go in. So when I was heading up the project, I could see that everybody, even my neighbors and everyone were talking about the project, like, oh, that wasn't scanning that well. There was a little bit of a queue, too many queue kind of thing. So you're listening to all those feedback, though you don't. Sometimes it's too much of a feedback kind of thing. So I felt like in that particular project made me realize that your customers are there everywhere kind of thing. And if you do any kind of small design mistake in the project, so they're not scolding me. Some of them didn't know that I was heading up the project. They were just scolding them. They will mention the minister's name. Oh, that wasn't so good. So that's how it comes down to. Another point I would say that working in government gives me a little bit of a bigger satisfaction when compared to private sector. What I meant is, in government sector, you are in a system where you're there to solve the citizens' problems, and you're not selling them any product or a service, and you're not trying to make any profit. You're not being that smart salesperson or anything. You're just going there with a pure mind of solving the problems and not making the profit. But when we move to the private sector, you're selling some kind of a product or a service, and you have your quarterly shareholders that you need to answer. So you need to make that profit. So I feel like you somehow become a very tricky human being there kind of thing. So I feel like here in this case, you're not that profit driven. You're more community thinking wise. So I feel like I feel much more job satisfaction in a public sector than when I compare to a private sector environment.
True. I think in public sector, in the public sector, you basically feel that you are serving the public at the end of the day, the way the ministers do, and you feel that part of that service, right? You're doing something for the city, state, nation, and the country overall.
But I would say that whenever you're in a government sector, it also comes with a little bit of a risk that you need to be super conscious about what you say and what you speak. Especially when I'm catching up with my friends and my other previous project manager colleagues, program manager colleagues as well. They keep asking, hey Harshitha, which project are you working on at the moment? And I've worked on some of very sensitive data center related projects as well, with the federal, including the federal data center ones as well. So at that time, you need to be careful about what information you're giving out. Sometimes we're humans, and in the flow of talking, you might give out. So sometimes I brush above the surface and not to give out much information. So sometimes I find it very tricky when it comes to working in a government sector, that one. In private sector, I feel like, I know there is sensitivity, but not to that extent, I would say.
No, I think I get your point, and yes, definitely we're not going to drill you down further on your projects in private sector. But yeah, I got your point. I think both in this case, have a certain level of sensitive information that you need to handle and take care. Public sector, from government point of view, of course, there's the issue that, sometimes people don't like what government is doing, and, they'll just take things in a different manner. In private, because of competition and other things as well. So, but yeah, point taken. I'll not review more here. I'll move on to my next question. And my next question is basically, now that, you're working into government sector for a while now, and I want to know, because now just to let you know, Harshitha, and for all the viewers, I shared this earlier as well, I had surveyed close to around 300 plus people in last few years, and all of them most of them actually belong to IT corporates. And I collected a bunch of questions, where they have challenges, especially related to communication, and that's why this program, right? And I have some questions listed here for Harshitha, and I want to ask that. And these are the questions that I actually get from the viewers most of the time. So my next question is the typical day that you spend, for your work. And I'm talking for work. How do you spend your day? Like, how does your day start? What are the key things that you do in your day that makes you a little bit productive every time? Do you have any hacks? What are things that you do?
Sure. I would say that my typical day starts the previous day itself. So that's how I see my typical day as. So for example, if my Tuesday is running, on the Monday evening itself, my day starts. So what I meant is, Monday, once that day's work is done, I'm someone who believes in planning and having clarity. And especially if anybody is managing a project, I think the project manager need to have an understanding of the deliverables and what's each and every day, how it looks, kind of thing. That's how I see it and believe it as. So the previous day, what I do is I check on the schedule, and also it depends upon the type of the project I am in as well, Amit. So my day will look different if I'm on a digital project following an agile methodology, and it looks different if I'm managing an infrastructure project with a waterfall methodology. I would say for simplicity for now, let me take as an infrastructure project manager following a waterfall methodology, how my day looks, kind of thing. The previous day, I'll make sure to check on the schedule. So what's the next day tasks are and which team members are responsible. That's the first thing I do. And the second thing is I'm going to check on what are the meetings that I am responsible for, which meetings I'm running. So I'll make sure that we have a logical agenda and which person is talking to which point, kind of thing. And do they have all the information that they have to talk to, and are they aware that they're talking to as well? And making sure that sending some reminders that people need to turn up to this meeting. I'm also very keen on getting decisions as a project manager in some of the meetings, and also the person who is making the decision, I'll make sure that they have all the information so that they can logically think and make the decision. So the previous day, I'll make sure everything about the meetings that I'm running itself. And on that day end, I'll make sure that if I missed out any small email queries from the stakeholders that they've asked, I'll clean it up the previous day itself, and also the questions from my team. My typical morning day starts at 9 a.m., I would say, and it always starts with a stand-up with my team members. Irrespective of it is a waterfall or it is an agile, I believe in that every day seeing my team members and speaking to them. So I'll make sure I'm very attentive on my stand-ups, and I take them very seriously. I list all the blockers, any team members, which blockers they have, and I try to resolve them in the first half of the day itself. And I'm someone who doesn't believe that I need to finish up all my meetings in the first half of the day when the mind is fresh. I don't believe that. I make sure to spread my meetings across the day, because I feel like I need to have that breathing space in between the meetings. So once the meeting is done, I try to finish off those action items in between the meetings as well. So I make sure the meetings are spread across. And also I usually end my day with giving a call to my stakeholders. With my current role, I manage like 22 stakeholders across different 21 government agencies. So I'll make sure to call at least 3 program managers from the other agencies to ask them that is there any pending actions from their side, or is there pending action from our side as well, and is there any issues that they're facing, kind of thing. At least minimum 3 calls, I'll make sure to do that one. And also by end of the day, again, I'll prep for the next day, kind of thing. So that's how my typical day looks like.
That's pretty interesting. I am a firm believer of planning it one day as well, and I like the points that you shared into the level of detail that anyone who would be listening can, if they just go and implement it, so they can try it out, whether this fits into their way or not, or something that they can pick it up. But thanks for sharing it to that level of detail. I really appreciate it. Thanks. All right. So now, so Harshitha I'm not sure whether she mentioned it during her introduction or not. She has been associated with Toastmasters for a long time. And, she's been a director, Area 10 director at Toastmasters International. Now, we know Toastmasters provides, gets the best of the speakers. Toastmasters helps you to hone your skills when it comes to communication and soft skills, right? And I'm not I do not know exactly what is Area 10 Director. So Harshitha, could you please throw some light on what exactly is the Area 10 Director at Toastmasters International, and a bit about your journey, at the Toastmaster side?
So I joined Toastmasters immediately after my engineering. So I've been associated with Toastmasters for more than a decade, I would say.
Wow.
So I would say that I think almost from few years I've taken a leadership role in Toastmasters. Particularly if I talk about my area director role, I've been an area director twice. And I took the role back in Sydney. So I was managing 4 clubs within the CBD area. So I chose that particular area and that particular clubs because I felt like I need to understand people better. When I say what I meant to say is, in those particular clubs, people came from different cultural backgrounds, different walks of life, and they had different intentions from Toastmasters. And so being an area director, I feel like first time you're helping people to achieve their goals. So your goal as an area director, your goal to help those members to achieve their goal. For example, I would say that one person was from Bangladesh, and I don't want to mention the name, and she had some issues with not just speaking, even having that confidence of standing up in front of people and speaking, just introducing themselves is such a hard task. I've never felt like that could be a hard task for someone. So I grew up with a very confident environment. So I've taken granted, you know about yourself. It shouldn't be that hard to introduce yourself. And that is hard for some people as well. It doesn't mean that they don't know about themselves, but they're just not confident to speak about themselves. So in this area 10 director role, I could work with them one-on-one and understand what could have been the issues and the problems. And also making them to believe that when you're up on the stage, when you're talking, nobody in the audience wanted you to fail. So telling them that people come with the goal to listen to you. So there's so much of positive energy that people want you to excel you kind of thing. So I feel like those kind of aspects, having that one-on-one conversation with people from Mexico, people from Philippines, and people even from the English-speaking background as well, having their first language, their mother tongue being English. So they had some of the inhibitions of speaking in front of the crowd. So I felt like I could meet plethora of people and I could explore, I felt, plethora of problems just with communication. That was very fascinating, interesting, and it also made me thankful about my own journey, that I had so many opportunities that I could build up myself, that I can speak confidently kind of thing. One more thing which I really stands out in the journey of area director role is it's so important to understand the intent of communication. It's not just the communication, the context and the intent. That needs to be very important. For example, I would say that I was mentoring some of the students, MBA students in my university. So my intent as a mentor should purely to make sure that that particular student excels in their studies. So that should be my pure intent. And this intent of the student should be the intent to trust me and learn from me completely. So if we don't come with a pure intent, if I don't have an intent to educate the kid or give out my knowledge or the sharing, if I don't have that intent, how much ever the structured communication or anything can validate that one. So it's very important that you should feel in the heart and the mind that you wanted to deliver something, you wanted to give out something, you wanted to contribute something, or else there's no point in having that communication, that soft skill. Your heart and your brain should have that intent to deliver genuinely. That's what I feel. That's what mainly I learned from my area director role.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Meeting so many great people from different backgrounds and places and things like that. B, also the fact that you just mentioned the intent, also is the key to the communication. Because otherwise, saying hi, hello, and so on is still communication. But if you don't have the intent, then it's talking. It's probably not communication, but that's really nice. Thanks for sharing that. And one more thing I also learned from your profile. Now, see, this is the fun part, right, for all the audience. When you go to a person's LinkedIn, try to see what all they're doing, right? Because that's exactly what happens when you know a person a little more better, right? So I also learned that she is the director of GovHack or GovHack. Now, I'm very curious. to know. I'm sure hack means you're not hacking the government securities, but I'm very curious to know what exactly is GovHack and what they're doing, and how's your role as a director there?
That's a good question. I serve as a deputy director for GovHack. So when I say GovHack is the open data hackathon. Basically, you're bringing people from all walks of life and give them around 46 hours to solve a particular problem. So you're basically bringing people together to build a proof of concept in that weekend and to put a video out and to talk about what story that they're telling and how they're reusing the particular data. So I package myself, how I see GovHack is like a festival of ideas. And I feel like the very basic aspect of human beings is to innovate, transform. So that's what I feel. So that's why I got associated with GovHack. So basically in GovHack, you're going and meeting the government employees. When I say employees, all the executive directors, and asking them what challenges they have and what type of data that they can share that citizens can utilize and come up with the solutions itself. So this platform gives a little bit of a responsibility on the citizens as well. It's not the complete responsibility of the government to solve the problems. So it's like two hands working together to solve citizens' problems. So I really enjoy this role, and I love the best part of this role is I get to judge all the ideas and to see what the data sets they've used and how they've used the data sets and how they've interpreted the data sets. That's something very interesting. Everybody can read the same data, but they can interpret it in so many different ways, and that is so fascinating for me. Sometimes I sit around like 3 a.m. in the morning watching those videos and understanding what type of data sets they've used, and that's the best satisfaction that I get. And it makes me to think differently about a particular problem. And also, this is a platform where you might be a developer, you might be a designer, or you might be someone who have no idea of technology but want to come along and learn from others. And GovHack provides that safe environment for people to come together and learn from each other and innovate, create, and build within that short weekend that government can take back and they can implement in a larger scale. So I feel very proud being part of GovHack.
That's quite interesting. I really admire you, first of all, for getting into other aspects of being creative, being helping in a way, right? Because it's not just that you're doing your 9 to 5 and that's the end of it. You're actually stepping ahead and being part of many amazing things. And so congratulations for that. You're doing a fantastic job there, because not many people do that. Okay, I know this. So that's fantastic. And secondly, yes, it also feedbacks to you, because now you can see things moving forward. You can, when something comes up, that it came out from the idea and you were part of it and other things. So that's really interesting. So is that the GovHack right now? Is it part of Australia? I mean, is it, or it just some states in Australia?
No, this is the hackathon which runs across Australia and New Zealand as well.
Oh,
so
wow.
Each particular state, they give their own challenges. So this is what the challenges that we have, and this is what the data sets. I can give an example that the project, when I was a participant of GovHack during my MBA days, so I worked on a transportation hackathon. So where we tried to solve the congestion, how better we can solve congestions, in which particular, where are the bottlenecks are. So we could see the data and which particular areas there were mainly the accidents used to happen. So it happens across different industries at different levels. There are some challenges which are national challenges, some challenges which are state-based challenges, and I would say that it is quite a big hackathon. It's the largest hackathon of Australia and New Zealand as well.
Wow, that's quite interesting. And again, like you said, this also puts on what you mentioned, right? Like, see, people have many opinions towards government policies and things, right? So this gives them an opportunity now to be the part of the solution as well. So it's a very interesting thing, and I'm very, how should I put it? I'm very happy in a way that you're part of it, because being part of something like this also gives you a lot of experience, a different kind of experience, which you'll not get in your day-to-day 9 to 5 work life.
100%. And I also feel like there are some transferable skills as well. Like if whatever you do outside, for example, you run podcast, there's something that you learn from meeting each different person. For me, also being part of GovHack, Toastmasters, and also part of OSTTA transformation group as well. These are something that makes me efficient at my 9 to 5 jobs as well. So I feel like this things makes me have to have that edge at my day-to-day life. So I learn a lot, and that's why I keep engaging in these kind of activities outside my 9 to 5.
Fantastic. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of transferable skills. Yeah. Otherwise, where are you gonna put your skills? Thanks, Harshitha, for that. Now, let me ask you another question. Many times I get asked this thing is that if you have to present to a steerco meeting or some senior important folks, right, stakeholders, what are the steps that you take to prepare for your presentation? And is there any tips from your end to the whole presentation part?
Sure. For me, as I mentioned before, like I believe in preparation. It might sound that gives me confidence. So if there is any steerco meeting and I'm presenting my project, and if there is any ask, I'll make sure to send out an agenda and the relevant papers and the presentation at least 2 weeks, or worst case a week in advance. And I'll make sure to for me, in the particular steerco meeting, I will not be speaking the whole time. That's what I feel like. Sometimes some project managers or the program managers try to speak to the whole presentation, the whole PPT or the presentation. I don't do that one. For me, I bring in the particular person that has done that particular work to present their bit. So my presentation is not me alone. It depends upon, I think it will be at least 4 team members or 3 team members in that particular steerco meeting. So I would say that how I prep myself, sending out the agenda and the papers or the pack in advance, and also making sure that I rehearse as well. It might sound a little bit stupid, like after being in more than a decade, I practice as well, because I don't want to things go wrong, especially if I'm asking for more money, or if I'm asking for any crucial decisions, or sometimes if I'm working on a customer-focused project, a citizen-focused project, sometimes the communication will be put out in the newspapers. So I'll make sure that someone from the Minister's Comms team has to review it. I'll make sure to get that action in those particular meetings. So I prep and practice my particular sections as well. In front of the mirror, I do it thoroughly as well. And also, I prep myself, and also make sure to prep with my team members as well. So how much time that we consume in each of those when we're talking about our content as well. I time it as well. So especially when we're meeting a minister or an exec director, the time is very precious. And in steerco meetings, it's not only my project alone I'm presenting, there are other projects in the row as well. So I'll make sure to stay within the time as well. So I would say that I prepare, I practice. There is no other golden rule, if I'm being honest. I work hard on it, I prep for it. I'll stay up on my, I'll be extra conscious in this particular meeting. And also I don't try to talk to the whole entire pack. Sometimes how much your project seems interesting for you or for me, but not for everybody else. Yeah. So I'll make sure to have that voice variation from the other team members, and they speak to their points. And if there is any questions, they can answer then and there itself as well.
That's very interesting, what you said, that you involve your team members, because that showcases 2 things. A is that you are such a kind of a leader who would like to take the team with you, right? You don't want to just answer everything on your own. Second is that it also gives a certain level of boost to those people who will now come and stand in front of a larger audience, and they feel that they are voice out, So, and plus, of course, giving the chance to the other side, the steerco group, to know that, hey, you know what, there are these sort of people who are working at the back end. So that's really phenomenal. And I completely agree to your point that practice is the key. Whatever you work in rehearsals, yes, I agree with that as well, because if it's a crucial and critical things, you better rehearse your words as well. It just helps. So I agree on that fact. Fantastic. Thanks, Harshitha. It's a last question now from my end to you, is that, do you recommend any, when it comes to communication and, improving your communication, I know practice is one of the most important things, but apart from that, to just enhance your, probably vocabulary or listening skills and other aspects, do you recommend any blog or book or podcast or anything, audiobook? Do you have any recommendation?
For me, I'm a member of Toastmasters International, so we get newsletters, and those newsletters are so good. They have literally dissected communication. They treat communication like science. Some of the articles are motivating, and some articles are really insightful in terms of communication. It makes you hold a mirror kind of thing in how you communicate. So I would highly recommend reading Toastmasters newsletters. That helped me a lot. Other than that, I follow a podcast called this All-in-One Podcast. So most of the couple of US entrepreneurs, they come in and they talk about the ideas, the social issues, the wider, bigger issues of the world as well. So when they're talking, I can see that how they construct themselves, so it is easy to consume for the other person, whoever is a listener is. So I like that podcast particularly because you're learning how to communicate to your bigger audience, and also you're learning about the bigger, wider problems that the world is going through as well. So it's like comes in a package. So I would say 2 of them. And of course, I do watch TEDx talks sometimes as well. But mainly I would say that Toastmasters newsletters, and Toastmasters do have some of the podcasts. I listen to them if I'm not sitting and reading, if I'm walking, if I'm running or jogging, and also All-in-One Podcast. And I'm not someone who has read a big book in any recent times, I would say, because I'm a little bit time constrained. I always appreciate people who give information in a succinct way so that I can learn quickly. But I've been told it's not a good habit. I need to get back on reading books again. So I'm going to make sure from this Christmas onwards, I'll make sure before going to bed, rather than listening to a podcast, I'll start reading a big book.
Interesting. And could you share the name again? Or if you can just share it if you have it on your phone. I'll just... What was the... Yeah.
All-in-One Podcast one? Yeah, sure. So this is the All-in-One Podcast.
Could you just lift it a little up? The phone.
Oh.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and we can see it.
Toastmasters newsletter, I feel like anybody can read it if they just like a Google kind of thing.
Sure. But yeah, thank you very much for those 2 things. And yes, I agree. I think Toastmasters, of course, it's a fantastic place to learn about how to communicate. All-in-One, I have never heard it even. I'll jump in. But thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you very much, Harshitha, for spending time with me and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom to our lovely viewers. Last thing from your end?
I just want to say thank you very much to you for being so much patient with me, with all my time changes and helping me in the journey as well. I really enjoyed being part in this podcast. Thank you so much. And I learned a lot from you as well, especially being so much patient and helping with whomever you're working for. I think you've got a little bit more extreme level of empathy and enthusiasm together. So it's a rare package.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Amit. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.